So I am principal investigator on a project called Children's Voices in Surrogacy Law in the UK, and I lead this project with Professor Kirsty Horsey and Dr. Zaina Mahmood. And this is a project which explores children's views on law reform in the UK. So we asked children about the current law in the UK and then whether they thought it should be reformed or not. And the aim of this particular project was to gather children's views on this for the first time. So this is the first project globally that looks at children's views on the law in surrogacy. It is focused on the UK, but it could be used in other contexts as well, in other countries, so that's exciting. And we had two phases. So in phase one, we spoke to children who had experience of surrogacy. So we spoke to children who were born through surrogacy and the children of surrogates, and also a person who had a cousin born through surrogacy. And then in phase two, we went to schools and we talked to children who didn't have experience of surrogacy. So we got different perspectives there, which was really fun to get as well. And so we used card games. So we got specially designed cards made where we played different games like voting games and sorting games, and they circled things on the cards. And then we also had an art corner. So in the break and before the focus groups that we did, they had different themes. So phase one had the theme, what does surrogacy mean to me? And they drew drawings and paintings and they made little models from plasticine. And then in phase two, the theme was, what did I learn about surrogacy today? And so we looked at three topics: parenthood, contributions to surrogates, and origin information. So with parenthood, we were seeking answers to the questions, who do you think the parent should be when the child is born? And do you think that there should be the chance for the surrogate to change her mind? And do you think that there needs to be a genetic link with one of the parents? We looked at what items or what things should parents be able to give surrogates, looking at things like gifts. We even put things in there like vitamins and cars and maternity clothes and money. And then we looked at origin information as well. So we asked children about parenthood, and we found that in phase one and phase two, the majority of children thought that the intended parents should be the parents of the child upon the birth of the child. They gave different reasons for this, but they were really kind of focused on, well, that's what everybody agreed to. That was the intention of the parties. The surrogate doesn't want to be the parent. And that was in phase one and phase two. And also, we did a brainstorming exercise and we said, what does a parent mean to you? What makes someone a parent? Some children were very scientific, and they said it's when you have a baby with a sperm and an egg. And then others were more kind of abstract. So they said things like love, support, responsibility, care. So these were the themes that came out in phase one and phase two. In phase two, they talked about the same themes, but they also mentioned genetics in phase two, which they didn't in phase one, which was interesting. And then we asked about whether the surrogate should be able to change her mind. And actually, a lot of children in phase one said no. But there was different views on this. So the younger children were more concerned with everyone being happy and kind of not upsetting the surrogate or the intended parents in any way. And so they talked about kind of having maybe joint arrangements, which kind of were along the lines of like contact arrangements, so that everybody could have a role in the child's life if there was a disagreement. Whereas the older children tended to be a bit more, straightforward about it. She agreed to be a surrogate, and therefore she shouldn't be able to change her mind. So there was differences in the age groups. And then we asked about genetic link for some of the groups. For some of the younger children, that was a bit hard to understand because we had to go through the sperm and the egg, and that one of these had to come from one of the intended parents. But there was nuanced views on that, so there wasn't like one answer on whether there needed to be a genetic link. But some children did pick up on the issue that if there was a woman, for example, who couldn't be pregnant but also was not able to contribute an egg, and she didn't have a partner with whom to have a child, she wouldn't be able to use surrogacy. And I remember one child saying that seemed unfair. And then in terms of contributions, we had a really fun game for contributions. So we had different cards with vitamins and maternity clothes and money and car and holiday. And they had to sort them into yes, no, and not sure bundles. So they had lots of fun doing that, and we got some really fun answers from it as well. So one child thought that the surrogate should not be able to get a car because she shouldn't drive when she's pregnant. And also they were a bit concerned about holidays in case the surrogate ended up in a country with no hospitals, or that she would give birth on the plane and things like that. But we were very interested in money, and we had to explain that what we meant by that was that it went beyond reasonable expenses, that the surrogate would actually make some money from doing this. So in terms of whether surrogates should be paid, we found that some of the children of surrogates did not like this idea, particularly the older children. So they thought that they wouldn't like to know that their mother had to be or wanted to be paid to do this, because they knew that she did it because she enjoyed it and she wanted to help other people out, and that they would be very worried if she was paid, because they'd be worried that maybe they needed the money and that maybe they should go and get a job or something to help out, and that it kind of seemed to interfere with her altruistic motives, so they really didn't like it at all. And in phase 2, there was support for money being paid. Now, phase 2 don't have experience of surrogacy. They're not born through surrogacy. They're not the children of surrogates. So they kind of were like, well, I don't see why not. Interestingly, we had 7 children born through surrogacy, and about 5 of these seemed a little bit indifferent about it. They were like, well, I wasn't born, and so it doesn't affect me. But we did have 2 of those 7 children who expressed some concern. I remember one quote from the children where she said, "You're not a toy, you can't be bought." So that was an interesting kind of concept in that regard. And then we looked at origin information. So we had cards where they had to circle answers. So we asked them, do you think it's important for children to know that they're born through surrogacy? Do you think it's important for children to know their surrogate? And we also asked, do you think that the children of surrogates should know about the children that are born through surrogacy, and whether or not they're related to those children if their mother used their own egg in a traditional surrogacy arrangement? And there was, across the 2 groups, support for openness in surrogacy, and that children should know they're born through surrogacy, that they should know the identity of their surrogate. I think it's really important to talk to people with lived experiences of surrogacy, and so to talk to intended parents and surrogates and surrogacy organisations, but also, of course, children. And they have so much to say, and it's easy to talk to them. You just have to think about how to do it, and that's why we use the cards and the artwork, and we got such rich insights from children. So I would definitely encourage people to talk to children and hear what they have to say.